Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour in Second and 60. That was a really interesting conversation that we had with Jordan Wiener and Jake Bradshaw of the Social Reset, two young gentlemen that have launched this not-for-profit that are working on reducing, if not eliminating, particularly young people's use of, if not addiction to social media. And they've got a program, a campaign for August where they want people to pledge that they're going to reduce their social media usage. And I think it's encouraging, and I think it's a great idea to put some boundaries and to actually ask people. In their workshops, they talked about how they go into schools and they ask people, students, as to whether they're happy with how much time they spend on social media, et cetera. But I got to tell you, I think it is ironic that the way they're getting their message out is through social media, because it's the best way to get the message out today. And so, it really does therefore show the positive and the negative of social media, that some people can get addicted to it and spend way too much time on it, but that it is a medium to get information out, to promote different causes better than almost any other way. And so, I think I wanted to close today by talking about technology and how people get scared of technology, and some people make technological changes out to be negative, and sometimes they probably frankly are, but that we've got to be judicious in our attitudes toward that. I was reminded by someone when I was talking about this that when the telephone was introduced, there were a whole bunch of naysayers that said the telephone was going to destroy personal relationships, that it would be, people would no longer meet face to face, they would just telephone. And they did studies on this after the fact, and they found out that what the telephone did is actually cemented relationships, because you still met people face to face, but when you didn't have the time to meet them face to face, you stayed connected via the telephone. And so that the telephone was a amplifier of and a thickener of the existing face-to-face relationship that existed. Just as I was driving into work the other day, CBC Radio was playing a review of George Carlin on CBC, responding to a whole bunch of critics of rock music. And I think it was the 1980s or 1990s. I can't remember exactly when it was. And a couple of educators came on and talked about how rock music was overly sexualized, overly violent, and was causing teenagers to do inappropriate things, and they were calling for censorship. And George Carlson, I think correctly called censorship undemocratic, not freedom, and wrong. And you can see that actually what ended up happening is there was ratings put on a lot of music, but there wasn't per se censorship. So the world has changed with the internet and digital media and social media. Something like 80% of all Canadian adults are on Facebook. And then I quote that statistic, and my kids say, "No, we're no longer on Facebook. It's the grandparents and the parents that are on Facebook. We're all on Instagram. And frankly, it's you guys that are on Instagram, or we're just on Instagram for pictures. We're really on Snapchat or TikTok." And so these social media networks, Facebook, obviously, probably the most successful, if not Instagram, I guess, seem to be scary and track our every moves. Someone told me that they were researching one topic on Google, and then they were inundated for the next couple of days on absolutely everything they looked at, whether it be Google, Facebook, Instagram, or anything, with ads for that one topic that they were investigating. And so therefore the cookies that are out there that are tracking our searching are communicating with each other, and it would seem, and conveying our interests out to other people. One of the concerns that the Social Dilemma, the film that Jake and Jason talked about, was conspiracy theories. Echo chambers can be created through social media like never before. I don't know, because I think that if people wanted to meet with people that thought like them, they would do that. And if they wanted to read right-wing newspapers or left-wing newspapers, they would do that. And if you take a look at cable news or even national news, some people think CNN is too left and Fox News is too right, and maybe CBC is too left, and who knows, whatever other station was too right. And that movie, The Network, just a couple of years ago that was on in TV, talked about how a generation ago we used to have anchors on national news that we all listened to and trusted. But that fragmentation was always going to occur. And, it was probably wrong. I remember days when there were only 2 channels on TV, and thank God we're not stuck with just 2 channels today. So what am I saying? I am saying that I think that social media has actually been a net positive. I think that like the telephone, we're communicating with people. I am staying in contact with friends from around the world, family members from around the world that I wouldn't have stayed nearly as close in contact with if it hadn't been for Facebook or Instagram, social media. And I love it. And it is a way of thickening an already existing relationship. And I've made friendships with people through social media that wouldn't have existed otherwise. So I think that it is comparable to the telephone. It magnifies, it amplifies, it thickens existing relationships. It may create new relationships. That said, I think that Jason and Jake were correct in one thing, is that some people become completely addicted to it. And it takes up too much of their time. And, sometimes I look at the smartphone and how many hours it says that I've been using it. And it is a little bit scary. But then I think about how many hours I talk to people, how many hours I read the newspaper, how many hours I watch news, particularly if there's an election on or there's a Capitol Hill riot or whatnot. It is similarly astounding. So bottom line, I think social media has been a net positive. I think the artificial intelligence that they use to track our usage to make us recommendations for what clothes we might want to buy, for what books we might want to read, for what music we might want to listen to, is positive. And we use it because it is helpful to us. I think there's privacy concerns, and I think there are overusage concerns. And maybe that's what Jake and Jason were talking about when they said we need to talk about it, we need to set boundaries. And, frankly, too much rock music. If it took over our lives back in George Carlin days, or too much time on the telephone, were similar things that we had to be cognizant of. Maybe too much video games, even though now these guys that are really good at video games are making millions of dollars in esports. So don't get so worried about technology. Understand it, use it to your benefit, but don't overuse it and don't get addicted to it. I guess that's my simple message. Anyway, Jake and Jason, the Social Reset, thank you for raising this issue. Thank you for organizing your not-for-profit. Thank you for running this campaign in August for people to get out in the world and enjoy the weather and spend less time on their telephones and social media. But at the same time, let's not take it too far. Let's not throw out what is an incredibly good resource. And the proof is in the pudding. That's how they themselves are promoting their campaign. So social media can be used for a lot of good things in regards to communication, and people with new ideas, entrepreneurial, social entrepreneurs, et cetera, that want to get their message out of something that's important to them can do that they wouldn't have been able to do before. Thanks. That's my show for today. Just to remind you via social media that the Brian Crombie Radio Hour is on every night on Saga 960 AM at 6 o'clock. I'm the drive home guy. You can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca. You can also get all my podcasts and videocasts on my website, briancrombie.com. My videocasts on YouTube, Brian Crombie YouTube channel, and on Facebook, and on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. And my podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, etc. Have a great night. Good night.